Welcome to the Woman After podcast. I am your host, Karinna Hogan. This isn't a podcast about getting over your past. It is about becoming the woman who exists because of it. If you're reclaiming yourself after divorce, heartbreak, loss, burnout, lost yourself in motherhood, or simply just waking up one day and realizing you've forgotten who the fuck you are in the right place. Every week, we're having conversations most people avoid: identity, self trust, healing, boundaries, your nervous system, grief, and reinvention, and what it really looks like to come home to yourself. This isn't self help. This isn't therapy. This is self trust and coming home to yourself physically and emotionally. Let's begin. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. Welcome back. I know I've taken a short break where I kind of paused a little bit on recording podcast episodes because a lot has been happening and I can't wait to share it with you guys. It is some amazing stuff. So, as you notice, I have a new podcast cover. It does have a logo on it where I am one of the founding mothers of the Breadwinner Energy House, which is a trademarked licensed company owned by my coach, Tay Daniels, the company Breadwinner Energy Company. So I am super excited. It is a venture I've been working on for a while. And now that I have established myself as one of the founding mothers, and the other founding mothers, they're just incredible women. And along with my coach, it's just incredible to work with somebody alongside that just really gets you and has helped you more in business and building more than two brands and just, pushing you out there to make sure that you are successful. So make sure you check out all the goods on Instagram. Now, if this is your first time listening to this podcast, my name is Karinna Hogan. I am a self-trust and identity coach and healer. So I help you through transitioning from divorce, heartbreak, losing yourself in motherhood, just the bullshit that life has hit you, because I have been that woman where I have been broke. I have been, divorced. I have suffered one of the toughest heartbreaks last year. And I have created just a path of becoming the woman after. So the woman after is not starting over, because we start over and sometimes we fall off the wagon. The woman after is starting from where you're at, starting with the experience that you've went through, and we create something better. So we rediscover who you are and just see you evolve into knowing who the fuck you are, detoxing from all those unhealthy patterns, unhealthy relationships, and just coming home to yourself physically and emotionally through strength, fitness, and identity work and shadow work. Okay. So those are the main things that I do. I help women that are 40 plus. So if you're over 40, you're divorced, just come home to yourself physically and emotionally, because I tie fitness into a little bit of the work that I do, because I believe that from a emotional and mental standpoint, it is a good way to channel all those ugly thoughts and have more of a grounded, clearer perspective on the decisions you make on a daily basis. So that is the basis of my business. So just lots of exciting stuff. So let's get into today's episode. Today's episode, I am going to dive deep into the woman I had to leave behind. So in 2019, I filed from divorce from a very toxic, unhealthy marriage I had to my ex-husband. Now, currently, yes, I still have to co-parent with him, but I was out on my own for, it had been 20 years since I had lived alone. I had two daughters that are special needs, and I had no clue what the fuck I was going to do. I had to just learn how to do things on my own. I was broke. I was broken. I didn't know who I was. I had lost myself in motherhood because one of my daughters is medically complex and has a lot of challenges, a lot of appointments, has had a lot of surgeries. And my autistic daughter, required a lot of support needs. I didn't know how I was going to do it. I had no resources. I live in a state where I have no family close. It is just me and I have no support system. So I had to really just figure out how I was going to live day to day. And I was in pure survival mode. I had no idea what this pandemic, because I was a healthcare worker at that time, that this pandemic was really just going to heighten not only the PTSD that I already had, but take it to a new fucking level. So I had to figure out how to get myself out of debt. I had to figure out how to co-parent health in a healthy way, which is not easy. It's a little bit better today, but it wasn't easy back then. And I made a decision in 2022 that I really wanted something more for myself. So what I did is I started creating courses in the industry that I worked in, because I worked in radiology, and that took off where I partnered with the CE company and started making a little bit of money there, but it wasn't enough. I wanted to have a bigger purpose. So I came across one night scrolling on TikTok like I usually do at 2 a.m. because that was the thing to do. And I had seen like this challenge that a business coach was doing. And that happened to be my business coach, Tay Daniels. And so I started following her on Instagram and I said, well, maybe, I had ideas of starting a business and maybe I could really do this. And so I started to take her challenge and she was teaching it live on Zoom. And there were all these other women in the room. And I said, I could probably do this. This feels pretty good. And I remember her reaching out to me and saying, I have this deal where I am opening up, her Breadwinner Energy Academy for building a group coaching program. And, we can do this. I had no idea how I was going to pay for that because I was still, working in healthcare, trying to figure out what I was going to do. And I was just just a shit ton of marital debt. So I went ahead and I said, okay. And I took things out of my garage and I sold them just enough to afford her program. And she will tell that story to this day over and over. And it's one of the best stories ever, where I went ahead and sold items out of my garage to afford this program because I really wanted to make an impact. And so that was the chain reaction for me to start the first brand, where I started creating digital products. And eventually I created a evergreen membership for CT technologists to just better their training, and it's for all the new incoming ones starting their training and to get them off on the right foot. And that took off right away. Like I grew, an Instagram channel, I grew a TikTok channel, grew a podcast out of that. So that just functions on its own. Then I knew I wanted to do something else. I wanted to make sure that I wanted to help the right women. And that's why I started the second brand. And now I am a founding mother of the Breadwinner Energy House. So to get to that point, I had to leave behind that broken woman that was always looking for acceptance, looking for love, trying to have people see me, trying to have somebody love me back, somebody choose me. And I had to grieve those identities. Okay. One of the things that we typically do is we tend to romanticize our old selves. Like, oh, well, if I would have been this way, he would have loved me more. Oh, well, then I would have been this way, my marriage would have worked. And we tend to grieve the identities of people and potential that we think, well, maybe if I'm this, this person will see me this way. And it's not always that way. And we can't romanticize our old selves because that's not who we are, even though we want to believe that that's who we are. And you grieve this identity that you could have been a better wife, a better partner, a better mother, a better, coworker, a better friend. And we grieve these identities because we are stuck in this comfort zone and just do not want to be uncomfortable to see what is that woman after and the woman I need to leave behind so I don't go back to these old patterns. Okay. Divorce was not the hardest loss that I had, and neither was the heartbreak of my relationship last year that ended. The hardest loss for me was losing myself in the process of, my marriage, of motherhood, of this relationship, because my intuition was screaming like, listen, nothing is going the way you think it is and something is wrong. And my intuition was always screaming like, this does not feel right. Okay. And you tend to lose yourself before those things end and before the chaos erupts. And then you're left there just in shambles like, how did this happen? And what did I do? Okay. So those weren't the hardest loss. The hardest loss was losing myself in that process, losing myself and just losing who I was. Okay. But in order to come home, and I'm going to explain what that actually means, is I had to dig myself out of those ashes and I had to dig myself and say, no, what is it that I need and who am I so that I can become the woman after all this just nonsense, the divorce and all this shit that has happened to me? Who am I? And I had to figure those things out and I had to come home to myself. So, not only physically and spiritually and emotionally, I had to come home to myself and offer myself, okay, I can trust myself. Okay. There's a lot of shadow work that had to uncover because all those things that get mirrored to you and the shadows and the thoughts and just the conditioning, those things will haunt you if you don't face them and say, okay, what is it that I need to do to say, okay, this is how I need to handle this. This is how I need to respond to this. This is how I need to, work through this, right? So coming home means that you just go ahead and you recognize the patterns. You say, okay, yes, I see this. How does this make me feel? Now, how can we work through this? That is what coming home really means. Okay. As far as my story that I started talking about in the beginning, I could not become the woman that I was. I cannot become her again because I will go back to just accepting breadcrumbs. I will go back to just having relationships that don't serve me because people do not choose me and chasing people. I cannot go back to her that goes ahead and self abandons when people decide to leave. I cannot go back to having somebody that when my intuition's screaming, no, this does not feel good, that I keep pulling that person closer or I keep pulling that situation closer. I cannot become her again because the woman that I am today does not choose those things. She chooses better. She has boundaries. She has self-trust. She has self-respect and she knows who the fuck she is. Okay. Now, I have encompassed all these things. And the one thing that I want you to take away is for you to start being the woman that you want to be today. I mean, the woman that you want to be, not as a mom, not as a career, not as a business owner, not as this, not as that, as the woman you want to be standing in your power today. You cannot become the woman that you were. You have to become the woman after all those things. Okay. And you have to leave that woman behind because you will fall into the trap of people pleasing, of performing, and self abandonment and self sabotage. And that's not what you want to do. I have an awesome free training. It's called The Haunted Woman. Yes, I am a horror movie junkie. I love all spooky things, and I do spooky things 365 days out of the year. So The Haunted Woman is a free training. So it's an audio series that I've created. It's 5 episodes that you can listen to on the go, and it starts to take the very first step on becoming the woman after all these things, after grief, divorce, heartbreak, losing yourself in motherhood, transitioning things in life, different seasons of life. This is the first step to that piece of becoming the woman after. Okay. So in that audio training, I just go through and I give you different things to start to break the patterns so that you can start on the path to becoming the woman after. Okay. So there is a link on the show notes. So make sure that you go ahead and check that out. Sign up for the free training. Now, if you are a woman that wants to go deeper, where we actually start to uncover these things to become the woman after, join the Woman After Collective. It's a membership and I do trainings and I give you journal prompts. We go through Q&A. You can ask questions and I drop in really good knowledge on all those things so that you can go deeper and start to really become that woman after. Everything will be linked in the show notes. So make sure you get the free training or come join us in the collective. Okay. Make sure you also follow on social media. So I am on TikTok at the woman after underscore, on Instagram, the woman underscore after underscore, because it was taken. So make sure you follow me along here and make sure to leave a review or share this with a woman that needs to hear this, that is really struggling and she really wants to become the woman after. So thank you so much for listening, and I will catch you guys on the next episode. If this episode felt like someone finally put words to what you've been carrying, don't let it stop here. Share this episode with the woman who needs to hear it. Feel free to leave a 5-star review so more women can find this space. And if you're ready to do the deeper work, join us inside the Woman After Collective, where healing becomes practice, self-trust becomes your foundation, and you never have to reclaim yourself alone. Until next time, keep choosing yourself.